Welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. Today we continue our look at the year 1957. We're up to the third quarter now, the months of July, August, and September. And as usual, there is a lot to get to, so let's get started right away with a look at music. On the first chart of the quarter, July 1st, 1957, many of the top 15 albums had already been in the top 15 at the beginning of the prior quarter or even at the beginning of the year. We've talked about those previously, so I'm going to go over those pretty quickly. So on that first chart, the top 15 albums were at number 1, Love Is the Thing by Nat King Cole. Tennessee Ernie Ford's Hymns was at number 2. At number 3, the soundtrack for the film Around the World in 80 Days. It'll be one of the year's biggest albums. It'll hit number 1 for the first time on July 22nd, then again for 5 weeks beginning October 7th, and again for 3 weeks beginning November 25th. At number 4 was the Peace in the Valley EP by Elvis Presley. EPs were listed on the album charts in 1957. Elvis's EP of devotional songs had gone to number 3 on June 24th. At number 5 was Film Encores by Mantovani. It'll hit number 3 on July 15th. Tennessee Ernie Ford was following up Hymns with another album, Spirituals, which will peak at number 5 next week, July 8th. Frank Sinatra's A Swingin' Affair was at number 7. It'll reach number 2 on July 15th. Tied with Frank Sinatra at number 7 was the original cast album of My Fair Lady. Steady Date with Tommy Sands was at number 9. It had gone to number 4 on June 24th. At number 10 was the King and I soundtrack. Number 11, Calypso by Harry Belafonte. At number 12, the Oklahoma soundtrack. The Eddie Duchin Story soundtrack was at number 13. At number 14, Bergen Sings Morgan by Polly Bergen. It had peaked at number 10 on June 17th. It'll return to number 10 on July 22nd. And at number 15, Pat Boone's EP of devotional songs, A Closer Walk with Thee. It had hit number 13 on June 24th and will return to number 13 on September 2nd. In hit singles on July 1st, topping the chart was Love Letters in the Sand by Pat Boone from his first film, Bernadine, was in the 4th of 5 weeks at number 1. The Everly Brothers' first hit, Bye Bye Love, was at its number 2 peak. It'll stay there for 2 weeks. At number 3 was So Rare by the Jimmy Dorsey Orchestra. Jimmy Dorsey had passed away on June 12, 1957 at the age of 53. So Rare hit number 2 12 days later on June 24th. It was the Jimmy Dorsey Orchestra's first top 40 hit since 1950. They'll reach the top 40 one more time with June Night, which will go to number 39 later in the year. At number 4 was Teddy Bear by Elvis Presley. It'll follow Love Letters in the Sand at number 1 on July 15th and stay there for 7 weeks. A white sport coat and a pink carnation by Marty Robbins was at number 5. It had spent 3 weeks at number 3 beginning June 3rd. At number 6 was All Shook Up, another huge hit for Elvis Presley. It had been number 1 from April 20th to June 10th. At number 7 was Gale Storm's version of Dark Moon. As mentioned earlier, Bonnie Guitar had had a number 8 hit with the song. Gale Storm was a longtime recording, radio, film, and television star. She had recently starred in the TV series My Little Margie and was currently starring in the CBS sitcom Oh Susanna with Zazu Pitts. Her version of Dark Moon will go to number 5 on June 17th. It was her 6th top 10 hit in a year and a half. It will turn out to be her last time in the top 40. At number 8 was Searchin' by the Coasters. The Coasters had a double-sided top 10 hit. Youngblood had gone to number 8 on June 17th. Searchin' will spend 6 weeks at number 5 beginning July 22nd. At number 9 was A Teenager's Romance by Ricky Nelson. Of course, he was the younger son of former bandleader Ozzie Nelson and former singer Harriet Hilliard Nelson. Along with his brother David, he was featured playing a fictionalized version of himself on radio and TV in The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, currently running Wednesday nights on ABC. As discussed, Ricky had debuted as a singer, performing a cover of Fats Domino's I'm Walkin' on the show on April 10th. As the B-side of A Teenager's Romance, it had gone to number 17 on June 10th. A Teenager's Romance sounded pretty much like a typical teen celebrity record. Of course, it had been a big hit, going all the way to number 8 on June 24th. More about Ricky Nelson later. And speaking of celebrity records, actor Sal Mineo's Start Movin' in My Direction was at its number 10 peak. Top 10 singles that will come and go in the third quarter included I Like Your Kind of Love by Andy Williams, which will reach number 9 on July 8th. It's Not For Me to Say by new singing sensation Johnny Mathis will go to number 5 on July 15th. His earlier single, Wonderful Wonderful, will reach number 17 on July 22nd. Send For Me by Nat King Cole will spend 3 weeks at number 7 beginning July 22nd. Over the Mountain, Across the Sea by Johnny and Joe will peak at number 8 on July 22nd. Short Fat Fanny by Larry Williams will spend 3 weeks at number 6 beginning July 29th. The Dell Vikings were already back with another hit, Whispering Bells, which will go to number 9 for 3 weeks beginning August 5th. I'm Gonna Sit Right Down and Write Myself a Letter by Billy Williams will bounce around the top 10 for a while before reaching number 6 on August 19th. White Silver Sands by Don Rondo will go to number 10 on August 19th. And In the Middle of an Island by Tony Bennett will spend 2 weeks at number 9 beginning September 23rd. Albums that will come and go from the top 15 in the third quarter included the excellent Here's Little Richard. It'll go to number 12 on August 12th. And Music for the Love Hours by Jackie Gleason, which will go to number 13 on August 26th. Perry Como's album, We Get Letters, so titled because the album was supposed to be made up of songs requested by fan letters to his TV show, will peak at number 8 on September 2nd. And Pat Boone's 4 by Pat EP will go to number 5 on September 30th. On July 6th, in an event significant to practically no one at the time, 16-year-old John Lennon is introduced by a mutual friend to 15-year-old Paul McCartney at the Woolton Church Garden Fete in Liverpool, England, where Lennon had been performing with his skiffle group, the Quarrymen. Turning to television in the third quarter, on Sunday, July 28th, Jerry Lee Lewis makes his first national television appearance on The Steve Allen Show, performing his new single, Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On, with a maniacal intensity rarely seen on television or anywhere else. It'll help propel the single up the charts. Though he's no fan of rock and roll, Steve Allen knows ratings and will have Jerry Lee Lewis on the show twice more before year end. On Monday, August 5th, American Bandstand premieres nationally on ABC. It had first come to television a year earlier as a local show in Philadelphia. Hosted by clean-cut 27-year-old Dick Clark, teenagers showed the latest styles and the latest moves while dancing to records or lip-sync performances by guests. On this first episode, Billy Williams lip-syncs to his hit, I'm Gonna Sit Right Down and Write Myself a Letter, and the Chordettes mime to Just Between You and Me. The show runs Monday through Friday at 3:30 p.m., right after school for most teenagers, and will become an instant sensation. On Thursday, September 5th, Dean Martin hosts his first television special since his split with Jerry Lewis. Dean's guests are James Mason and Louis Prima and Keely Smith. As usual, in September, the networks began rolling out the new TV season. There were already several successful Western series on TV. Westerns were popular and relatively cheap to produce. Following that money-saving trend, 1957 became known as the Year of the Western, with many successful series making their debut. NBC had gotten an early start back on March 18th with the mid-season replacement, Tales of Wells Fargo. On September 14th came Have Gun Will Travel, starring Richard Boone as Paladin on CBS. On September 17th came Sugarfoot on ABC. On September 18th, we got Wagon Train on NBC and Colt 45 on ABC. On September 23rd came The Restless Gun on NBC. One day later, on the 24th, The Californians on NBC. And on October 16th, Tombstone Territory on ABC. Of course, there are a lot of other new TV programs in the fall. Premiering on Sunday, September 15th on CBS was Bachelor Father, starring John Forsythe as a carefree single Beverly Hills attorney whose newly orphaned 13-year-old niece comes to stay with him. The niece was played by Noreen Corcoran. Bachelor Father will run until 1962. On Saturday, September 21st, we got Perry Mason starring Barbara Hale as Della Street, William Hopper as Detective Paul Drake, and Raymond Burr as Perry Mason. The stories were well told, but after the first couple of weeks, anytime Lieutenant Tragg and Prosecutor Hamilton Berger saw it was Perry Mason for the defense, you'd think they'd have just said, "You figure it out, Perry, and let us know when you've got it." Moreover, when confronted with Perry Mason's impeccably pieced together evidence, the real criminal always shouted out their confession in court. Somehow, it was still effective drama. It'll be one of the season's biggest hits and run until 1966. On Sunday, September 22nd, came Maverick, an unusually light Western drama starring James Garner as Brett Maverick, who was more of a rascal and a card player than a gunslinging frontiersman. Behind the scenes, it became apparent early on that production on the series was hopelessly behind schedule, leading to the very unusual step of introducing a second lead character, Brett's brother, Bart Maverick, played by Jack Kelly. Essentially, to keep the show going every week, it relied on two separate, different casts and crews working simultaneously. Bart Maverick will make his first appearance on November 10th, 1957, and will star in about 1/3 of the first season's episodes. The strategy will work, and the show will be a hit, running until 1962. On Thursday, October 3rd, came The Real McCoys. It starred character actor Walter Brennan as Grandpa Amos McCoy, and Richard Crenna as his grandson Luke, and Kathy Nolan. It was a sitcom about a rural West Virginia family who relocate to a Northern California farm. It'll become one of the first successful rural sitcoms, a formula that will really take off in a few years with the Andy Griffith Show and the Beverly Hillbillies. It'll become one of ABC's most popular programs, running until 1962, and then be picked up by CBS for one more season in 1962-63. Premiering right after The Real McCoys on ABC that night was Red Hot singer Pat Boone hosting his own half-hour variety series, The Pat Boone Chevy Showroom. Featured were the McGuire Sisters and the Mort Lindsay Orchestra. It'll be popular, running until 1960. On Friday, October 4th, Leave It to Beaver premieres on CBS, starring Barbara Billingsley, Hugh Beaumont, Tony Dow, and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver. The family sitcom won't do very well, regularly losing to ABC's returning The Adventures of Rin Tin Tin in the ratings. CBS will cancel it after one season. ABC will pick the show up for the 1958-59 season, giving it a slot on Thursday nights ahead of the popular Zorro series. Once on ABC, the show will catch on and run until 1963. And speaking of Zorro, that series will premiere on October 10th. Zorro is a Walt Disney-produced adventure series starring Guy Williams as Don Diego de la Vega, a.k.a. Zorro, Masked Defender of Justice. Zorro is on ABC Thursday nights following Circus Boy, a series that ABC picked up for a second season after CBS canceled it. Corky, the Circus Boy, is played by young Mickey Braddock. Circus Boy will last only one more season. 9 years later, Braddock, then 21, will of course become more well-known under his real name, Mickey Dolenz. Zorro will be very popular over the short term and will run for 2 seasons. Also in October, Screen Gems releases 52 old movies from the 30s and 40s to television in a package called Shock Theater. Among the titles are Dracula, Frankenstein, The Wolfman, and many of their sequels. Local stations begin airing them in late night or weekend afternoon time slots, often with a creepy host like Roland in Philadelphia. The package will be a surprise hit and spark a monster craze among kids and teenagers, most of whom had never had a chance to see the movies before. Among major new movie releases in theaters, there was Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis in the drama Sweet Smell of Success, which opened on July 4th. On July 9th, after a supporting role in last year's Love Me Tender, Elvis Presley took his first starring role in Loving You with Elizabeth Scott and Wendell Corey. On July 10th came The Pride and the Passion, a historic adventure drama set during the Napoleonic Wars starring Cary Grant, Frank Sinatra, and Sophia Loren. It'll be number 1 at the box office the week of August 14th. On July 17th, Eva Marie Saint in the drama A Hatful of Rain. On July 19th came An Affair to Remember with Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr as a couple who fall in love and agree to meet again in 6 months at the Empire State Building. July 20th saw the U.S. release of Curse of Frankenstein from England's Hammer Pictures, directed by Terence Fisher and starring Peter Cushing, Hazel Court, and Christopher Lee as the monster. In the U.S., it'll play on a double bill with Hammer's X the Unknown, often at drive-ins. Big color horror movies are a new thing. It'll be a big hit in the U.S. and pave the way for more color big-screen Hammer horror films in America, many starring Peter Cushing and/or Christopher Lee. Premiering on July 24th was Night Passage, a Western drama starring James Stewart and Audie Murphy. Also on July 24th, we got Bernadine, a high school comedy starring hit recording star Pat Boone in his first film role. Boone's recording of the title song for the film had reached number 14 on the charts. On July 29th came Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, a satirical comedy starring Jane Mansfield and Tony Randall. On August 2nd, we got the biographical drama of 1920s actress Jean Eagles starring Kim Novak and Jeff Chandler. On August 3rd came Band of Angels, a historic drama starring Clark Gable and Yvonne DiCarlo. On August 7th came Glenn Ford and Van Heflin in the Western drama 3:10 to Yuma. Released on August 13th, Man of a Thousand Faces, a biographical movie of silent film star Lon Chaney with James Cagney as Chaney. Like many biopics, it went for melodrama over accuracy. Nevertheless, it'll be a respectable box office hit. Released on August 28th was Perry, a Disney true-life wildlife adventure film telling the story of Perry the squirrel, reportedly shot over a period of 3 years. On August 29th, we got Doris Day in the musical The Pajama Game. It'll be number 1 at the box office the week of September 4th. Released on September 18th, The Three Faces of Eve, a mystery drama which will win a Best Actress Oscar for Joanne Woodward. Released on September 23rd, The Sun Also Rises, based on Ernest Hemingway's novel, starring Tyrone Power, Ava Gardner, and Errol Flynn. On September 24th, following the successful Seven Wonders of the World, comes another travelogue documentary in Cinerama narrated by Lowell Thomas, Search for Paradise. This time it will be a look at Central Asia that reports to trace the footsteps of Marco Polo. Like its predecessor, it will become a sizable box office hit. Premiering on September 25th, Jet Pilot, starring John Wayne and Janet Leigh. It'll be number 1 at the box office the week of October 2nd. And released on September 26th, The Joker is Wild, starring Frank Sinatra, Mitzi Gaynor, Gene Crane, and Eddie Albert. In notable news, on August 7th, Oliver Hardy dies at the age of 65 after a long bout of declining health. As always, September was back to school time in America. This year in Arkansas, going to school became an outrageously intense and heated ordeal for 9 Little Rock students. On September 2nd, Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus ordered the National Guard to block racial integration by preventing the students from entering Little Rock Central High School. His move is in direct defiance of a U.S. court order allowing them to attend the previously segregated all-white school. Over the next few days, the students, who become known as the Little Rock Nine, were stopped by National Guardsmen and later by angry mobs in several further attempts to attend classes. On September 25th, following a request from Little Rock's mayor, President Eisenhower federalizes the National Guard and calls in Army troops from the 101st Airborne to restore order and to guard the 9 students as they attend classes. Despite continuing harassment within the school, 3 of the 9 will earn their diplomas from Central High School, with the others eventually transferring to other schools. So I hope you found this interesting. I look forward to your comments. Please hit like if you don't mind and subscribe if you haven't. And join us next time when we wrap up the year 1957. Till then, have a great week. Bye.